Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely stream deck. For more information about the stream deck, the link is in the description below.
Four rounds are now complete of the Apex Online Racing GTE iRacing League's 12th season. We now get set to return to the former location of the United States Grand Prix here in upstate New York at Watkins Glen International. This is the second consecutive season that the series has made a stop in the Atlantic Northeast to this gorgeous facility nestled in the hills and forests of the National Park District of New York State. Hello all, my name is Brayden Hill, and I'm joined today in the Apex Online Racing broadcast booth by my colleague and producer Niclas Domino. And we welcome you along to the start of today's qualifying session as we see our AM drivers getting set to go out on track. Nick, we had a little bit of a quick start to the session, so I'll bring you in and ask you what your expectations are for the race, knowing that we've been here the last several seasons. There have been several balance of performance adjustments ever since then, as well as the addition of a few cars. What do you expect to see out of our drivers this week?
Well, I expect what we normally see as we are at the moment looking at Mel and Cooper, that this track tends to leave us a train of cars. It's often a little bit difficult to overtake on, so strategy is definitely gonna be a focus point for these drivers. It's a difficult track, so you know, with tire temperature and stuff like that, we are, as you say, in New York, and it tends to get quite hot out here. As if we just look at our weather at the moment, we only have 25 degrees. We are, you know, late in the year, so that will help the drivers, but we have long fast corners that will definitely, you know, make every tire scream a little bit, so that's what I expect. Drivers need to be on edge, because if they make the smallest mistakes, you know, they will get punished. As we look at Cooper here, have the we are without the chicane on the straight, which means that we can get a bit of slipstream going, so that at least should spice up the race just a little bit for us.
And we will try in a couple minutes to get an on-board lap with one of these drivers, give you a little bit of a tour of the circuit as the AM drivers go around the circuit. Looks like Bakke Gabrielsen in the 377 will be one of the first to come across the line to finish a lap. He's actually just set a purple fourth sector, though we expect to see that change quite often. We're now on board with the Ferrari 488 GTE. That is Gabrielsen we're now looking on board with as he comes out of the final corner and heads onto the pit straight. We'll see if he continues on for another lap or if he will pull over to the side. No, looks like he will go for another lap, so you'll see they dive deep into turn one, all the way down into the third gear. Going to use all this run off to the left-hand side before heading up into the S's, completely flat through this section. Going to be a battle of the slipstream, see who can get the better run out of turn one to try to get up the hill fastest. Normally, we'd see people using the bus stop chicane to the right-hand side in just a few moments' time. We will not be using that this week. They'll just go straight on here, dive into the carousel, throw those cars to the right-hand side, and try to make it stick, let it feed out to the left, hit that curb. Now gonna head into the boot. Certainly one of the most difficult corners here that he's heading into now. A little bit of banking there to hold the car in and make those Michelin tires a little bit happier about their situation. So we see now he will come out of the toe of the boot and now heading towards what we call the heel. Of course, the corner names given by the shape of the track, reminiscent of a boot, obviously. Now he comes out of the heel of the boot and heads back to the exit, rejoining where the NASCAR circuit would normally go, coming out of the carousel. Now through the final 2 corners, going to try to maximize as much as possible to the left-hand side, 90 degrees, and then back immediately to the right as quick as possible. This is where the pit lane entry is located, and that is a lap around the Watkins Glen International Speedway.
Yeah, and it is a lap where, you know, we are driving under the NASCAR Turn 1 rules in iRacing, so you tend to see drivers, as you see here, just go completely into a different state when they're going off tracks. Off tracks around here is ridiculous, but it is a track where you're always on the limit. You throw the car into those turns, and when you get a lap around here, as we just saw Gabrielson do here, was you know, you have the feeling of this was a good lap, but you always, as we see here, down into the long right corner. This is a corner that you always have a bit of understeer at the beginning, but you know that due to we have these camped corners that you will always get a kind of a good line through them. Just be careful on the outside, because if you hit those grass, you get a bit too wide on the curbs and get the grass, you will spin. And you know, there's only a wall on the sides, and a contact with a wall for a car is never a good thing.
Of course, and actually a little bit of an interesting thing to note now that we're in qualifying, iRacing recently putting in a balance of performance adjustment, giving a little bit of a disadvantage to the BMW that was so dominant for the beginning of the season, and a little bit of an adjustment to the balance between all of our GTEs. So it is interesting to see that the Ferrari is at the top of the charts, given how underwhelming, one could say, its performance has been so far in the season. We're following along here with Cohen Van Eyck. He will come across the line, set a purple final sector, and go to the top of the charts. So I stand corrected on the Ferrari being at the top of the charts. Cohen Van Eyck will set our first 1 minute 39 with a 1:39.667. So our Dutchman coming into the pit lane, he'll stand on that lap as we see some of our Pro-Ams starting to come out. Just a few of our AM drivers, in fact, coming across to finish their laps. That is Dennis Cottier in the Porsche, trying to stay out of the way of one of the V3 Racing Corvettes that came flying past, heading into the S's. We're now riding on board with Darius Sazu in the 315. That's one of the BMWs that recently had a BOP adjustment given to that lime green car.
Yeah, it was a really small BOP change, as it equal to, I think they were talking about 9 horsepower for the BMW. But you know, in these cars, 1 or 2 kilos can be the difference maker of a lot of tens, and you know, less horsepower, then you have, you know, less power to get that beast around, and that you will lose a bit of time. But the Ferrari around here, the reason why I think we see it so high up is that in the past at least it has been really good on you know, turn in with an aggressive front end, and around here with some of these corners, really, you know, that you're pushing so much speed into them, it's easy to get that understeer, and the Ferrari really helps with that, so it's easier to place into the corners where you really want to.
And of course, this is a very line-sensitive track. Passing going to be quite a challenge, especially in some of the high-speed corners where it's difficult to get to the inside of another driver. We now look at one of the first of our Pro-Am drivers to come out on track. That's Marvin Slubin of the 241 Hyperion Racing Corvette C8. And we've seen him actually leading the pack, qualifying as he goes a little bit wide, entering the boot. Good thing that's only an out lap for him, so won't affect any of his lap times. Maybe a little bit of an argument between himself and those Michelin tires. Just behind him, one of his teammates, Victor Mateos, another of the Hyperion Racing Porsches. And then Antoine Morel, who we saw have an unfortunate beginning to the race at Silverstone 2 weeks ago. We do want to make note that there was a race where we were not able to broadcast. I apologize. I was actually out of town. So we're not able to have the broadcast up for that race, but we saw Mike Skeppers take home the win in the Ford. So the first driver to actually dethrone one of the CRG cars for a win. That was at Road America last week. So this is the second American circuit in a row that we've seen. And actually, we see Marvin Sluman run a couple of purple sectors on their last lap. So we will certainly see a pickup of the pace from our Pro-Am drivers. Now looking at the 241 coming up the hill, riding on board with him and completely flat out through this section. So if you mess up in turn one, that is a really long time before you will be in a corner again. So got to be picture perfect, millimeter perfect, heading into turn one every single lap for the next 80 minutes after our qualifying session. Marvin Sluman still holds the purple first sector. He'll go a little bit slower in his second sector compared to his outlap. Let's see if he's able to pull off. Yes, much better heading into the boot this time compared to what we saw on his outlap when he had a little bit of a moment sending that car over to the right-hand side a little bit earlier than one would expect and having to get out of the throttle. Now we'll see how he does in his third sector. We'll see if he is able to improve. Yes, indeed. So that will be another purple sector in the third for him. Antoine Morel, not too far behind, not able to take away that purple sector. So we'll ride on board with Marvin to the end of the lap, exiting the boot. This is one of the most challenging corners on the entire circuit. A blind exit, so if there's any sort of incident just outside of the corner, it will be quite a bit of action trying to avoid any sort of incident, any sort of crashes. See Sluman come across. He's actually lost the purple sector, but he'll come across the line, and that is another purple sector. To the top of the chart goes Marvin Sluman. So two Dutchmen at the top of the charts currently. Sluman, then Ike, and Antoine Morel comes across the line. He actually goes down to third and then fourth, now fifth for Morel. So not a great lap for him. Leslie Seleznev actually now just gets bumped down by Kevin Unk. Owen Blythe comes across the line to take the second position. So now the time's continuing to get lower and lower. I'm not sure if we'll see any 138s from our pro drivers, but the current fastest time by Marvin Sluman, a 139.483, only a tenth behind is Owen Blythe from the V3 Racing Corvette. After that, the first of our our AM drivers, Cohen Ben Ike, with a 139.667. We'll see if perhaps we'll see another performance out of him like we saw just a few weeks ago in Sebring, the other of our American circuits that we've had thus far in the season. He, in fact, was several seconds ahead of his competitors in the AM category and well within the battle for the Pro-Am category. We're now looking at Thomas Lagney. We've seen him have a couple of pretty strong performances over the last few weeks in that chrome blue and black.
He just hit the curbs there.
Yep, just a little bit of too much curb in the toe of the boot. Got to be careful there, especially with this slightly outdated version of the circuit that iRacing does feature. Unfortunately, they have not yet re-scanned the track since it's repaved. If memory serves me correctly, in 2016 or 2017, this track was repaved and given curbs, maybe a little bit less aggressive curbs compared to what we see here on iRacing. These curbs almost reminiscent of those on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, where they're very high up, and if you use too much of them, they will chew you up and spit you out in a hurry. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a lot of yellow and green, not too much purple, so the pace falling off on the tires, the Michelin race tires for these drivers. As we see Lagney come across the line, he will be 9th in class and 11th overall for the moment. Now on board with the very loud Porsche 991 RSR coming up the hill. That is Victor Mateos we're on board with in the Hyperion Racing car. Looking out the back towards, I believe that is another of the BMWs not too far behind, and we'll see in a couple minutes time our pro drivers start to come out, so keep an eye on the clock in the top left corner of your screen. We now see him entering the boot Now, we haven't seen too much more performance, at least not so far in the league, from the Porsche 911 RSR. So the question is whether or not the Porsche performance will pick up a little bit over the next couple weeks, thanks to that balance of performance adjustment that we saw from iRacing. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on that. We know earlier in the season the Porsche and Ferrari were horribly underpowered and underrepresented throughout the league. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more balance from that. It's always better from a broadcaster's perspective and even as a driver's perspective to see more variety in our different manufacturers. Always no such thing as too many manufacturers in a race, and I'm sure you can agree with that, Nick.
Oh yeah, definitely. You want as many different cars as possible on track, as we just see Victor Mateus go up to P9 on his personal best lap at the moment. But as far as I know, at least the only real car that got changed in the BOPs were the BMW, and the Ferraris and Porsche haven't really been touched. They could use it. But this is the thing with the iRacing BOP, it changes from season to season. I remember when we started this GTE League, the Ferrari was just the most overpowered car that there were, especially on the straights. You know, a track like Daytona, it was just ridiculous. That was only the Ferrari that could win. The Porsche in its first season especially were definitely a powerhouse as well. It did have some really difficult curbs situation, where if you looked at a curb you would be on your roof, so that was not nice. But yeah, we want more cars, and iRacing hopefully we will be able to get, because we are having a incomplete GT roster. We have to acknowledge that we do miss a certain James Bond car with the Aston Martin. I would that is a car that I'm missing, as we just see Victor Mateus go completely off the track. Let's just have a little bit of a look of that again, because he will definitely be happy that we replay all of his mistakes. And just a little bit. And that's a feature with the Porsche around here. I remember from when I drove here myself, in that corner especially, the car just seems to be unstable due to where the fuel tank is placed in that particular car. Because to get the fuel out of the car for qualifying, you're actually also getting away with all the weight on front of it, so your balance and downforce levels are not the same as what you would expect. So sometimes the car can be a complete mess, as we are just having GT Pros coming on the track at the moment.
Indeed, and actually we saw just before our pro drivers came out, Owen Blythe took the top of the charts from Marvin Sluman, and then Aleksej Seleznev on his final lap in that brightly colored Tide-sponsored Corvette C8. He came across the line to take the top spot. Now we'll see the pro drivers led by the Ford of our lovely German friend in the 122. Ford not too far behind him, in fact, is one of the Venom cars. I believe that is Mike Skeppers, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so he, Mike actually just comes across the line now, so that must be Andy, who is in that long train. A lot of those drivers trying to give each other a slipstream, so actually I'd say there's probably quite a disadvantage to be Mike in the 122 leading that pack. He doesn't have the slipstream, and he's in fact giving a slipstream advantage to his competitor just behind, Andy Gorton. When interesting to see how many Fords we now have because of that balance of performance adjustment. The thing that is interesting also is we do not see much, if any, representation from the Comrade Gaming stable. We did see Martin Nidalik after last week withdraw from the championship, and in fact we have Alex Bennett, who's out this week. He will be returning next week, however. A lot of purple sectors at the bottom of your screen, a lot of purple and green. So those are definitely the colors that these drivers are going to be wanting to see on their dashboards and hearing from their crews back in the pits and the paddock. as they come across the line. Looks like Andy Gordon holding with the purple second sector. Mike takes a purple penultimate sector. John Hallowell fastest in the first sector. So a lot of variety. Very good. Nobody able to go. And hard into the wall. Andy Gordon just got hard into the wall on the exit of the final corner, and he'll pull off to the side. He won't even complete his lap. Man, that's unfortunate because he was on a flyer of a lap just then. The German driver in the Ford now goes to the top of the charts. So looks like actually a couple of drivers had their laps disqualified. Mike Skeppers now goes to the top of the Dutchman, yet again on the top of the charts with a 139.020. Not quite a 138. We'll see if anybody's able to break into that. Still 4 minutes or so remaining, so they have time for another out lap. Andy Gordon going to want to be as quick as possible getting back out there. For those who don't know or aren't familiar with how iRacing's qualifying system works, if you have any sort of incident, it automatically disqualifies your time. So in the example of Victor Mateos a few moments ago, he going off the track, getting a 1x for leaving the track limits. That will have disqualified his lap, so he came immediately into the pits from there. Andy Gordon, on the other hand, we saw him go across.
Yeah, I was just
and
trying
looks
to see
like
if I could
Skeppers
find
to the left
that,
side. It looks like a little bit of an incident from Mike. He went off to the left-hand side, probably texting and driving, knowing him. I don't know. He's probably doing something. He's probably got something up his sleeve, I'm sure. Not any sort of accident there.
We do
Mike
not condone
is
that
too
action.
good in that action. It's
don't
not
text
illegal
and
if you
drive.
don't get caught.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
Well. But what we saw there on the laps, with Mike actually being, Shepherds being in P1 and our German fellow in P2, that every time Gordon came into after the first two sectors, he was slower on the third, fourth, and fifth sector, because those are the places where you really want that clean air and the downforce on the car. So you want slipstreaming in the first sector, but you definitely don't want a car in the last part of the track. So he will actually lose time, as we see here with we're having here's Andy Gordon, and who's behind him.
Oh, huge moment. That was Hallowell, maybe?
That was Hallowell. Yeah, just Hallowell having...
that was Hallowell. A huge sideways moment coming out of turn one, and I don't know if we can get a replay of that, but especially from the inboard camera, I would love to see the work he was doing with those hands as he actually has to pull over to the side and try yet again to get a lap in. He actually has gotten a lap in and has scored fourth in the pro category.
Yeah, we are only having Mr. Gordon and Alpol, who in the pro haven't set a time yet, so the pressure is definitely on for them to perform this time, because there's not too much left on the clock, so they need to get a time in. And maybe Gordon could, even if he gets this lap done, I'm not sure. I don't think that there's time enough. I don't think he can get back and actually go around to do another lap, so this will be his lap. And you can see he's at the moment not being personal fastest in first or second sector. That was what we saw before with the slipstream, so he has been personally improving in the third sector, and now let's see over the fourth. He's not better in the fourth sector, so this is not a better lap for Mr. Gordon, and he would definitely want to be up there to battle out with his Venom teammate Shepherds up there. But let's see what it will be when he crosses the line, and he's posting in, and that is going to be P3. Close, but
not too bad at all. Certainly nothing to be disappointed with, though I imagine he may have gone faster if he did not. Oh, and another moment in the same spot that we saw the issue a little bit earlier from Andy Gordon. And actually, speaking of the driver, our German friend, as we so lovingly call him, I've actually received a personal message from our good friend and colleague Stefan, who has been so kind as to send me a message that it is pronounced Wies Kopseeker, according to his German pronunciation. Of course, we do know he is a native German. Stefan is and pretends to be Finnish, so he's a fake snow.
He's a fake snowman. Yeah, he's definitely a fake snowman. He's a fake Finn. I don't know who have decided to put the Finnish flag for him. You know, it should have given him a little bit more pace than what it did. But as we are actually having qualifying, time is now over, so the drivers who are on the flying laps can actually, you know, complete them. As the first one who will try and see if he can improve is Gordon, but I think, you know, with those times it's not good. He's not really improving anywhere, and that seems to be the trend after the first kind of, you know, first lap on these tires. The performance just goes, but it does, you know, again, it does take a little bit of time to get the heat in, so it really difficult as he's just decided to completely smash it into the wall when he crossed the finish line.
Certainly in a position to improve on that lap. We actually see our current pole sitter, Mike Skeppers, setting a purple third sector just a moment ago. We're looking now at John Hallowell, his Venom teammate. Of course, he is in the Venom Sidewinder car, those blue branded Venom cars, whereas the red cars under the Venom Ultima banner. So we'll see. Actually, it looks like Skeppers has quit that lap. So John Hallowell will be the last to come across the line. Will he improve on his qualifying position? Yes. He jumps up 3 positions to the 4th in class, and that will be, in fact, 6th overall. So we actually have a really solid mix, if you look at it, at the top of the field between our Pro-Am and a little bit of representation from Am, from Cohen Van Eyck. We'll see if he has yet another.
He's a fake Am. Sometimes he's just a fake Am. You know, he is especially in qualifying, he is a Pro-Am qualifier, but he doesn't seem to always get it right during the race, so that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, he's a fake Am sometimes. As we're just waiting for the official results here, we are just with this new program, we have to wait till the session actually changes. So, but you
a few seconds.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And seeing a little bit of witty banter among the drivers currently in the paddock. A little bit of comment from Mike Skeppers saying a Mike front row lockout, though I believe it's Mike and, well, I guess Mike? I don't know. Anyway, I'm American. I can get away with mispronouncing anything. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I do imagine we will probably continue to call him our lovely German friend instead of by his actual last name of Wieskopseeker, something like that. I don't know. We have too much time on our hands. Anyway, the grid just about to start forming in just a couple moments' time. Let's see if we can bring up our qualifying results. Let's do that just now. I will pull it up myself. On the pole from Venom Ultima, Mike Skeppers in the Ford GT. Another Ford just to his outside, the Fuga Sim Sport car of our good German friend. Andy Gorton will be just behind his teammate, the Venom Ultima car. That will be 3 Fords on the first 3 positions. Then Oleski Seleznev in his Tide-branded Corvette GTE. Owen Blythe, one of the V3 Racing drivers, the first of the V3 Racing drivers, in fact, in the 5th position. Then John Hallowell, another of the Venom car, Venom Sidewinder, the 103 car. Marvin Sluman, yet another Dutchman, up at the top of the charts in the Hyperion Racing orange car. After that, another Venom Sidewinder car, Michael Edens. So each of the Venom cars lined up with one another. Dan Alpel in the Team Shazoo Omega car, the first of the BMWs, I believe. Cohen Van Eyck and Am all the way up in the 10th position. Kevin Hulk will take 11th, and Sarah Dove with a really impressive performance out of her. We don't see typically a lot of performance, a lot of pace out of her in qualifying. Great to see her up inside the top 12. Additionally, we have, let me go down, sorry. After that, we have Garner's Rose Gals in the Phoenix Racing Club Eggshell car, Antoine Morel, the Frenchman from Relax Racing, then Chris Yardley, the Hyperion Racing RTX car, Fuga Sim Sport teammate, Taj Edwards, the Jamaican driver, number 123 in the 16th position, Baka Gabrielson, the second of the AM qualifiers. After that, Victor Mateos, the Hyperion Racing teammate to Chris Yardley, Thomas Lagney, in the Team Shazoo white car, followed by Merlin Cooper, Thomas Kuhn, and then Jamie Smith and Bartaz Makota. And Dennis Cotier will be our final qualifier, 2.5 seconds off of our pole time. And I won't tiptoe around it. A very, very small field compared to what we're used to. We're used to 40 cars at least. And for those watching, we do ask, spread the word. I mean, we have some great racing in this league. A lot of great quality drivers. We've seen a few incidents of this season that we're not used to, unfortunately. But generally, the racing does not get much better. And for an 80-minute league, I don't see how you can go wrong on a Monday night.
No, definitely. And we also, to that point, there have been talks about maybe changing the format a little bit. So if anybody's, interested out there, just keep an eye on the forums. There will probably come a little bit more information during, the end of the week, at least, about what can happen. But yeah, come and join us. We will gladly take you on, and these 3 different classes of drivers. There's always somebody to battle with, and that's the great thing about the league.
Absolutely, and even the quality of the field. If we look at our strength of field in each of the classes, really strong on the pro field. We have a 3.9K iRating average, 3K for our Pro Am, and 2K for the Am. So certainly our league welcome with open arms anyone of any skill level, and you will have a great time racing and 3 different championships to battle for. I don't see how it gets any better than that. So our leader in each of the classes, Mike Skeppers, currently leads our pro category. Pro-Am, Oleski Seleznev is the top spot there, and Cohen Van Eyck with a large gap in the Am field. Of course, proving he's not quite a one-trick pony. We saw a similar performance out of him earlier this season at Sebring. So I'm sure there will be discussions post-race as to whether or not he should be in the Am category. But in the meantime, we look to the front of the field, where we have 3 Fords leading 2 Corvettes, then a Ford Corvette, and the first of the BMWs, Dan Alpel, a little bit further back. And in fact, an interesting statistics, we have 5 different Dutch drivers hailing from the Netherlands in the top 12. So the Netherlands getting great representation here. Mike Skeppers wheeled into the final corner. 3 Fords on the front several rows. Mike coming to the right-hand side. He steps on the loud pedal and heads into turn 1. Now we will go to the green flag here at Watkins Glen International. And already Mike Skeppers clear at the front of the field. His teammate, Andy Gorton, already to the inside of Mike in the heading into turn 1. We're riding on board now with Gorton. He actually makes the pass done and dusted on the German, who now will lose yet another spot from one of the Corvettes. I believe that's Owen Blythe in the 278. So he will come across there. That is the first of the V3 Racing entries. He is going to put on quite a show this week, I would imagine, and amazing listening to the engines as they come up the field. No better camera angles here as we look up the back end of John Hallowell at the brightly colored Tide Corvette, now off front at the rather brightly colored Ford. A lot of dominance from the Ford and the Corvette up the front of the field. We'll see them break heading into the boot for the very first time at speed. Venom 1-2, followed by V3 Racing, and then our yet another Venom car in the mix, a few positions behind. A lot of single file for right now. We'll see some battles start to develop in a few moments' time. We'll see if we can look a little bit further back.
Oh, Marvin is close.
Marvin Sluman not giving Oleski Seleznev any sort of a break, and he'll go around the outside. The impressive move from Sluman to the left-hand side. He will take the position, heading back out of the boot and onto the NASCAR course. Seleznev now moves all the way to the outside. He drove a little bit hard in there, and Marvin Sluman takes the lead in the not the lead, I should say, second place in the Pro-Am category, and Oleski Seleznev losing a couple of positions there. Now under attack from another one of the pro drivers. That's Dan Alpel, not too far behind him in the blue, gold, and black Team Omega car. Actually 3 wide across the line here. Antoine Morel making a big move to the inside. getting around Cohen Van Eyck and now putting a move on Kevin Onk. Won't be able to make any sort of return move on the outside. He will, in fact. So he gets clear heading into the S. Is going to be a big slipstream battle there. A great run on the outside line to defend from Kevin there. So a lot of action already in the first couple of laps. 7/10 the gap at the very front of the field, but this is where the battle is. Now to the inside, Cohen Van Eyck making a move to the inside of Antoine Morel. That is an AM against a Pro-Am. Corvette against the BMW. Will the Corvette be able to make the move heading into the carousel? Not quite. They will stay clear for the moment. Yep, now to the inside goes Cohen Van Eyck, but now Antoine Morel will have the preferred line heading into the boot. Antoine will be clear now going into the boot. Not too far behind, we see Sarah Dove trying to make her way into this battle a little bit. She stays in line, not going to push it too hard. Very responsible driving from the AOR veteran. Very good to see her running well. Sixth in her class, I should say, in that pink, white, and black branded Ford GT. Now to look back at the front of the field, or actually, let's look a little bit further back at the field. Looks like we have a little bit of a tight battle back around Victor Mateos. He's got a couple of drivers behind him. Merlin Cooper and Dennis Contier currently going at it. Very close there between the V3 Racing car and the Porsche just behind. We'll see if Dennis is going to be able to make any sort of move. Looks like Merlin actually going to gap a little bit and start putting some pressure on Victor Mateos, who we saw have a couple of issues now.
We just have a replay of Sarah going off here. Just 2 seconds, if I can find it here.
Oh, that's a pity.
Oh, just a little bit. Oh, who's that in front of? That's Van Eyck. Yeah, but did you see Van Eyck as well?
Van Eyck was really badly sideways. Looks like he used a little bit too much curb and actually just nicked the grass just enough to lose traction, nearly lost the position to Sarah. I'm not sure why Sarah slowed down so much. She lost a few positions from that, but still well in it. Glad she wasn't didn't lose control of the car. She was well in control there. We've already seen some action on the exit of that corner. A lot of people pushing really hard and easy to make a mistake there. She's currently under pressure from one of the Hyperion Racing cars. That is Chris Yardley just behind with that toothy grin, looking in the rearview mirror of the Ford GT. Nothing more menacing than a...
it's a good grin. It's a good grin. And yeah, as a driver, when you see that, it's not a pleasant thing to see. Because you're like, what is going on here? And I can give you one worse now. Selevsnev does not have that helmet on anymore. But in the Formula 3, he had a smiley on, but his car was in a creeper from Minecraft, so it looked like a creeper that smiled at you, which is
that's horrifying.
That is horrifying. But at the moment we are seeing Van Eyck just as I expected, just tumbling down a little bit through the order. I will say we have had a really great start to the race. Not too many offs. We have had a lot of battling for position, but without having heavy contact, as we actually have a replay here, if I can find it, of that's
not good at all.
That's
hard contact coming up through the S's for Bucket Gabrielson. We'll see if we can get a little bit further back. That's the Hyperion Onyx black car. Looks like maybe some sort of contact, or maybe he got into the grass on the exit of turn 1. That runoff does go to the grass rather quickly, and if you don't get back onto the pavement, you can very quick. Oh no, that's horrible. Contact with his teammate. That's Victor Mateos, who put him hard into the wall. That was quite a shunt. So to the question of did he jump or was he pushed, that was more than a push. That was rather a shove. That was quite a shove.
Yeah, and there's no way to save that, and it's really difficult because it's not an easy place. Victor trying to get up onto the inside, but if if the driver on the outside doesn't see him and does not respect, then it's two drivers going for the same piece of tarmac, and you will have tears at the end. It's not just a crash; it is tears, and I think that will be race over for our Norse driver.
Certainly an unfortunate way to end the day. We're looking now at Sarah Dove, the UK driver from Team AOR, the only Team AOR driver entry in this race. She's been rather passionately attached to that Ford GT. I don't think I've ever seen her drive a car other than the GTE.
Oh no,
She's
no.
in
So
the
Sarah is for GT, and for GT is Sarah. I think she's been driving that car. You know, I think we had one season where it was like Ferrari Challenge, but that's the only season where she hasn't been in the Ford. And Sarah has done almost all seasons. I think she has missed in total about half a season. With she even drove with a half, broken foot at one point as well. We were like, why? But she just loves to race, and she's had some really incredible performances over the season. I just want to point out here, we're actually having a pro driver being pushed at the moment by an AM and 2 and 3 pro AM drivers. At the moment,
to look at, isn't it?
Yeah, it was
Jamaican driver who is being followed very closely by Colin Van Eyck. And then Gunners vs. Gals and Sarah Dove not giving them any sort of room. And Chris Yardley just waiting to use those teeth on the diffuser of one of his competitors. I'm sure he will not waste any time doing that. Oh, that is cool. That was a huge moment from Michael Eden. Catches the grass on the right-hand side and ends up losing control of the left-hand side. But I don't think he's done any damage to that Ford GT. I think he's, in fact, just been able to get right back onto the track. Let's look on board.
Oh, just the smallest of touches.
Just a kiss.
He's very lucky that could have been horrendous at that point. You know, it's so easy to just go in. And this track is so unforgiving. If you go off, you know, we have walls really close to the track, and we have grass. And iRacing's version of grass is ice. I don't know where that translation has gone, but it really is. So for Edens to take that one is really incredible. And what he did there he didn't really brake too much, and he just tried to slowly save it, because if you do it too much and try and overcorrect it too much, it will definitely go, as Thomas Kuhn has just overtaken. That is Jamie Smith, and that's a BMW that has seen better days, definitely.
That BMW looks rather depressed looking at the front end of that car. An unfortunate moment, perhaps. Some contact with Thomas Kuhn just ahead of him, trying to make a pass there. So now we actually have two of the V3 Racing cars battling for the final step of the podium in the AM category. That is Merlin Cooper in front of Thomas Kuhn. Each of those drivers running that V3 Racing third year anniversary livery with the featuring the white, black, and gold, made by yours truly.
I was about to say, who have designed that? With all that
how interesting a question to pose.
Yeah.
We now look at Michael Edens. Perhaps another incident from him.
No, we're live right now, and he's just trying to battle his way back through, you know. And at the moment, he has Alpol in front of him, who will definitely not. Ooh, as we are sorry to completely cut myself.
No, that's okay.
Let me just see if I can find it. It's actually Sarah. Sarah has been.
Oh no!
It does say that there's a crash. Ooh, just a little bit.
Oh no!
But she saves it.
Oh, but she saved it. She saved it. She just needs to.
Goodness.
You know, if you're Sarah, you just got to take a deep breath. You got to take a nice deep breath. Yeah. In through the nose, out through the mouth, and try to get back focused on what you were doing, because she has gone very rapidly from being towards the front of the field in 6th place in category to now being only just ahead of the battle for P3 in the AM category. A tight battle between Gunners vs. Gals, and just behind him, not sure who that is.
It's Van Eyck. Van Eyck is behind.
Is Van Eyck putting some pressure on him? So Cohen trying to flex his muscle. Dennis Cartier now not too far behind, about 4.5 seconds or so back to the 2nd place running AM car. Cartier, actually a really impressive performance from him all the way up in the 2nd position. Not quite sure how he ended up there. He didn't really, if memory serves me correctly, he qualified all the way in the back. And we've seen actually a change for position between Onk and Morel, and a couple of changes for position towards the front as well. And
I think Mr. Owen Bly is having a technical issue, because he's just going up and down. It looks like he's lagging a little bit up there.
Yeah, I would imagine he's probably having some internet issues. He's had a couple in the last couple of weeks. I've discussed that with him pre-race, because we did see some blinking from him in Silverstone when he nearly won that race. So certainly interesting to watch him doing a little bit of a tap dance up and down the timing chart, going back and forth there. We're currently looking at Dennis Cotier, and in fact now looking at the front at our German friend Mike, who is currently in front of John Hallowell. That is the battle for third and fourth, and I think Owen may have disconnected. That may be some sort of issue. And speaking of disconnects, a little bit of an update. Gabrielson has unfortunately disconnected, so that's going to be a retirement
Yeah,
for driver.
for our only Ferrari driver, but we also saw with that huge incident that was race over at that point.
No question about that certainly, and he certainly wasn't going to be competitive by any means. But some really big blinks we're seeing out of Owen Blythe from my screen. He has been gone for nearly almost a lap, nearly a lap or so that he's been gone. We're looking at Michael Edens currently putting a little bit of pressure on Dan Alpel ahead, not exactly on the back bumper quite yet, but he does look to have a little bit better pace. The Ford showing its agility here. I think that's what's making it so powerful at this track thus far. When you looked at what made the BMW so strong a little bit earlier in the season was the fact that it was just so fast in a straight line. Yeah. It was impossible to make any sort of a pass, and they were so good on aerodynamics. It was they were able to run a lot of speed in the center of the corners, but now the agility of the Ford and the Corvette has come to play.
Yeah,
so
I did have a talk. Yeah, I did have a talk with some of the drivers after, especially the Silverstone race, and some of the Corvette drivers were running with 5 in the rear wing. I was not able to follow the BMW, and Yardley in the BMW were like, well, I was running 8, so he had a lot more downforce on his car. But one thing is the BMW, it was the top speed, but it was the power out of the corners that really was the difference maker for the cars, because even in slipstream, the power out of the corners was just so strong that they couldn't get it back on slipstream power. So it hopefully have helped with, but a lot of the BMWs we do see at the moment are in pro amps, so we don't quite get the full picture of the performance of the car.
And I will say, with the discussions that I've had, I do try to be in touch with the paddock very closely and making sure that I'm communicating with a lot of these drivers. From what I've been described, the Corvette is almost like to make an analogy, the Ford is a particular beer, and the Corvette is a light beer. Similar characteristics, they handle basically the same, but they just have a little bit just different enough to be different cars, but they are very similar. So that could be a lot of why we see at the front of the field 2 Fords, a Corvette, 2 Fords, 2 Corvettes, leading our standings at the moment. The top 6 only Fords and Corvettes, though a nice sprinkling of BMWs, 4 of them between Dan Alpel and Gunners Rascal.
We're having a battle up here.
A little bit of a battle for position. Yeah, so Owen Blythe giving up a position, it looks like, or actually not giving up a position, he's battling for a position here, trying to take it away from our German friend. He looks like he has done that, so that is overall podium for Owen Blythe at the moment, despite his internet connection issues that have plagued him for the early stages of this race. We'll see if he's able to make a move. Actually, no, was he defending?
He was defending. He did have that P3 as we're just watching Smith.
Oh, little bit of a half spin from Jamie.
That was contact. We'd have
to see that. We'd have to see that from a better angle to really be able to tell. Oh, a late dive. Yeah, that was a little bit late from the number 315. Luckily, doesn't seem like too much harm done by Darius Sazu. We're right on board with him, heading into the corner. Just a little too late on the brakes. Wasn't quite inside there. And I mean, that's a mistake anyone could make
Yeah.
Especially if you look from the perspective of the onboard camera. It's really hard to see with that. Really hard to see with any sort of certainty whether they are in fact side by side or not. I mean, I very easily could have thought, because of the lack of depth perception,
Yeah.
that he in fact was clear and wouldn't have had an issue. So certainly something of an innocent incident, and I'm sure no malice behind that, as we see a slipstream battle. Slipstream battle here, Marvin Sluman trying to, or actually that's Alessi Seleznev putting some pressure on Dan Alpel. Will he be able to make the pass? Michael Eden's also involved here, and he gets on the brakes, pulls to the right-hand side, so that is Alessi Seleznev with the pass done and dusted, but looks like Alpel going to come back on the inside of the preferred line, goes to Seleznev. Alpel going to move to the inside, but Seleznev covers the inside line. Heading into the boot, they will not be able to switch positions again, so I believe Alessi has that position done and dusted. He will continue on in his quest to chase down Marvin Sluman, just about 2 more seconds up the road. So he is not too far behind. John Hallowell only a little bit further ahead of that, but our leader in the Pro-Am category, pretty high up there, is Owen Blythe, who, if the standings are not mistaken, he has lost the position. Yes, in fact, he has lost the position to Weeze Copseeker. So here is the pass. The Fugasim Sport forward to the left-hand side, gets the draft, the slipstream, and will make the pass cleanly, heading into the carousel on Owen Blythe. Blythe certainly not giving up on that battle by any means. He still stays in line and is trying to show himself a threat to the inside, and not going to be able to make any sort of move here. We'll watch and see if he's able to get any sort of a slipstream. Let's see if we can ride on board with him and just see how strong the slipstream is coming up the hill. We're on board with him now. Let's see if he's able to get any sort of run up here. Interesting sounds from the engine, a little bit of an iRacing glitch worth noting for those watching. That has made the spectator cams sound a little bit odd, so certainly that is not what the car sounds like in real life, as we hear him get off the gas now into the carousel, and this is where the aero push becomes a huge factor once they get into the corner. Side by side now between Cohen Van Eyck on his teammate Chris Yardley.
Yeah, he just got passed by Yardley, so you know, again tumbling a little bit down the field, and the pass
was breaks again.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what we saw before with Alpel, he will be furious with Seleznev. He has just used a bunch of laps to try and get past Seleznev, and then Seleznev on the next opportunity just, you know, repasses him, and he's losing all that time up because he needs to get past these Pro-Am drivers to, you know, get up to Hallowell to really get any positions out of it. Right now he's stuck behind it, so the 2 next cars is just another gap between him and a race position. And he's under pressure at the moment by Edens, who is getting closer and closer, and that could definitely lose him a position soon.
Indeed, the slipstream going to be a big factor in that battle between those 2 cars. We've seen a lot of battles for basically clean air. You want clean air in the corner, so we see an incident just a moment ago.
I think that's a hardware failure. I think that was a hardware failure.
We'll have to look at the replay on board there to be able to determine it. Hopefully that was a hard.
Yeah, if we go on board again here, just look at it with the steering wheel, just there, and just keeps on going to the left. I think that's a hardware failure right there. That's a wheel going off.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question there. Or that was one hell of a way to die intentionally.
Yeah.
Certainly not something we want to see, and unfortunate for that to be a hardware failure. You never want to see a competitor taken out by no fault of their own. But of course, that is part of sim racing, and actually, if you think about it, it is something that provides a little bit of extra realism, because in real life, those things do happen. In fact, there are hardware failures, there are tire blowouts, and things that can happen at any time, really. and no one is safe from that. There, you can only do your best to have the best equipment possible to prevent something from happening.
Yeah, and you know, to just mention that, especially the guys who watch the Le Mans 24 with the virtual Le Mans 24, where I think was it Pagano who swapped Simrig in the middle of the race because he had a failure. Oh, that was
Yep, had an entire rig ready to go at a moment's notice. Of course, most of us mere mortals do not have such equipment at our disposal.
And it was practiced. You could see he had practiced it. He knew that that could happen, and that was just, you know, the professionals. What is the word I'm looking for? You know, the
absolute professional.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that you know that they were just putting into it. You know that these drivers really take it seriously as well. You know, even the pros, when they're getting into sim racing, really take it seriously, because they have to be on top of their game, otherwise they won't win, even in sim racing.
And even in sim racing, the cars aren't real, the tracks aren't real, but the competition always is. That's never been a question for anyone on the sim racing scene. Now, we have seen our first pit stop, Zarius Sazu in the pits, though I'm not sure that was any sort of a scheduled stop. No, actually, it looks like he's just filling up on fuel, but he has been in the pit lane for a
He has
long,
changed tires.
long
He has changed
time.
tires.
Changed tires.
Yeah, the car were up on the jacks, so that's a change car.
So a 42.5-second stop for Sazu there. He may even lose a lap. Yeah, that's the leaders just in the background of the shot there. So he will lose a lap now to the overall leaders. Mike Skeppers comes across the line, now comes around him. Sazu comes in between Andy Gordon, but is very cordial, stays to the right-hand side of the track and allows our leaders to go. And Mike Skeppers has properly run off with the lead over his teammate, but still 3 Fords lead the field. Then the first of our Pro-Ams in fourth position is actually pretty cool to see. Our Pro-Ams being really close and competitive with our pros. You can see 3 pros, a Pro-Am, 2 Pro-Ams, 2 pros, and then 2 Pro-Ams.
And a Bly going off again. He's just disappeared.
Then you have Blake having another blink out. We look now at Oleksiy Seleznev, hailing from the Ukraine. He is currently holding off Dan Alpel, who we passed a little while ago. So he hasn't quite been able to pull away, which is interesting. And we see this field starting to spread out a decent bit, but actually it looks like the battle is closing up decently between Gordon and our German friend. Looks like only about 0.7 of a second or so the distance between them, or perhaps.
No, I think you're wrong.
I was reading the standings wrong. I apologize. So
yeah.
4 seconds the distance between them. So I apologize for that. But actually, if we look back where we were just a moment ago, I'm not sure who we were looking at. I think it might have been Morel that we were on board with just a moment ago. That battle getting pretty close between those 3 drivers. That's a pro, Michael Edens, in the blue Ford that you could see off the nose of this car. Darius Sazu continuing to have issues, it seems. He has not gotten back up to pace. His last several laps have been very slow since changing those tires. Not sure if that is his overall pace or perhaps some sort of problem with the car, perhaps a suspension issue or damage that is plaguing that.
I think he's just I think he's just giving space to the other drivers out there. He is on the blue flag rule, so he needs to, you know, let the fast driver by, and with these drivers being so close, as we have seen them here, you know, you're easily losing a couple of seconds there, because, you know, as we see this battle between Morel and Edens, you know, that's a lot of time to lose, and he just came out right in between these, and that's the thing that the amps have to think about as well when you're pitting, as that, you know, you could lose that lap, and then you will get into blue flag situations, and then you will just lose and lose and lose. As Dennis is having an issue here. Let's see, Dennis. Yeah, he's getting
side
past.
He's side by side here with Sarah Dove. Sarah actually
just loses
very
the rear.
Oh,
That's
Did he
a
just get
heavy
loose
one.
there? I would have to think he just got loose. Maybe some oversteer heading into the corner, and he overcorrected. Let's watch on board. Sarah made a very clean pass to the inside. We're running on board with him. Yeah, just a lot of oversteer. So it looks like if we could actually go in slow motion on that replay, not sure if we could do that. If you look at the entry, if you can go to the entry, maybe maybe a little further than this, but if you start right here and just start to do slow motion, you can see as he starts to turn in immediately, because of where he turned in. Normally these drivers get a very shallow entry into that corner. He's trying to counter steer. You can see how much he's turning to the left hand side and even tries to correct back, but just too much steering wheel angle and just sends him straight into the wall. Unfortunate from Dennis, and that I would imagine has done some serious damage that would likely end his race.
Ooh, as we are having another issue, this is Dan Alpel, and he's just that curve again.
Oh, and he had it.
Oh.
He had it. He just got back onto the throttle a little bit early, a little bit too enthusiastic, trying to get back onto the track, and a impressive rejoin. That could have been a lot worse there, coming across the track as fast as he did, and yeah, right there, just catches the grass just enough. The grass just so treacherous in iRacing, and right here, and it looks like he got onto the grass yet again.
Yeah,
yep,
and I think he just went onto the throttle at that exact point, and he was on the grass, and then he's just sent it completely into the wall. And let's just get that from outside as well, just so we get all of it. You know, we really need to see all the crashes for these drivers. They need to relive it.
Yeah,
but I think, yeah, I don't think that's too much damage. I think he.
I don't know. With iRacing, that could be right front broken.
No, he's hitting quite straight on, so I don't think that's too much.
Let's look on board with him live. Let's see what he's running live, and if he has any sort of steering angle.
Let's see if I can.
No,
it looks pretty straight. Yeah, it looks
pretty straight there, as we see a couple more pit stops. Hopefully not for any sort of incident, but yeah, he's definitely off pace. You can see not quite at the speed that car once had. Dennis Cartier now laps down. I would imagine he is going to retire, but Gunners Gals is in the pits already, only 30 minutes in. So actually, no, 30 minutes, it should be about standard for these drivers to start pitting. We'll see them getting into the pits in just a few moments' time. We'll see how our leaders want to handle the pit strategy. We look now at Mike Skeppers from one Dutchman to another.
That is, you know, he's just going away with it at the moment, just being consistently faster than anybody. And it's, you know, 4.2 seconds is not a lot, but it's just slowly, you know, 2 tenths, 1 tenth, 2 tenths. You know, he's just taking lap after lap out of Gordon, and Gordon is definitely one of the faster driver and one of the faster Ford drivers. We've seen him in the past up there, and Shepherds have had issues in the past, as we actually seen Gordon going the Gordon lap longer. As we are actually having another thing here, we are having a Mr. Dan Alpel, if I can find him. I think he's had an issue again. Let's see on board here. Just that slide oversteer. Oh, that's a hot hit. That's a hot hit.
Just a little bit too hot into the corner. Ended up drifting straight into the wall with the left-hand side. Certainly unfortunate way to end the day. And yeah, looks like he even entered a little bit higher into the corner. So perhaps some marbles from qualifying or something up there that has made that entry ever so treacherous for these drivers. And he just got in there so hot.
Yeah. Just a little bit too much speed.
Squealing as soon as he got into the corner.
Yeah, he just had too much speed there, and that just, I think that is the end of his day, to be honest. But sad to see, but yeah, I think yeah, he just had too much speed, and once that car goes at that point, it's always going to be a big one.
Yeah, once it's gone, it's gone. We now look at Antoine Morel, second place in the Pro-Am category. As we saw just a few moments ago, our leader, Owen Blythe, come into the pits for his first fuel stop. And in fact, Our overall leader has also done the same. Mike Skippers into the pit lane as well. So Andy Gorton will inherit the lead. So 3 Fords still in the top 3. That's actually 2 of the Venom Ultima cars at the top of the chart. Antoine Morel in the second position now because of the pit stop. Jamie Smith has just come out of the pit lane, but now Andy Gorton dives into the pit lane. You see his timer in the bottom of your screen, and the leaders, basically the entire front of the field, has followed him in. Yes, in fact, they've all come in a train. We'll see if the early pit stop from Owen and Mike will play into their favor or not. Remember, 4 seconds roundabout was the gap prior to the stop, and you can see Mike actually behind his former teammate Merlin Cooper from V3 Racing, and Thomas Kuhn not too far ahead. I imagine they will dive into the pit lane. Yes, so that will be clear sailing for our Netherlands driver. Let's see if we can look at the pit lane. Who is coming out? Yep, there is Andy just coming out of the pit lane. How big will the gap be? Has he closed it up really at all? Yes, he has. Around about 3 seconds, he was able to reel Mike in there. Only about 8/10 the gap down from around about 4 seconds. So that is a huge advantage in the direction of Andy Gorton. And in fact, Owen Blythe seems to have lost a position or 2 as well. Not sure if that was actually strategy from John Hallowell, who still scored in the 3rd position in the pro category. I think, no, he has come into the pit lane. So that is John Hallowell up in front of his German Ford manufacturer teammate. That is 4 Fords now, followed by 3 Corvettes, followed by 2 BMWs. An interesting balance at the top of the field. Now looking a little bit further down, Sarah Dove now into the 7th position, just behind Cohen Van Eyck, our leader in the AM category. 3 cars between Cohen and Thomas Kuhn in AM. That is the battle for the lead there. Merlin Cooper currently holds the final step of the podium in that category. Jamie Smith not too far behind, right about 14 seconds, which sounds like a lot, but with still, give or take, well, we have another pit stop, so 2 stints remaining in this race if they've just pitted now, and that, in fact, is 50 minutes remaining, just under an hour left in the race. Oleksiy Seleznev putting a little bit of pressure on Marvin Sluman for the 2nd step of the podium in the Pro-Am category. Still a rather strong hold on the lead for Owen Blythe, just a little bit further ahead, but he did pit earlier, and that did not play in his favor, so certainly not any sort of pace that has put him back close with his competitors. But that's actually a pretty good grouping there. Second, or around about 2 seconds, I should say, between Owen Blythe and Marvin Sluman. That's 1 and 2 in the category. Then another 6/10 back to Oleksiy Seleznev. 5 seconds to Antoine Morel, the Frenchman, just a few more seconds back. Then 4 seconds to Gunners Resgal. So that battle, 5 cars within, certainly within reasonable touching distance of one another, and that race certainly nowhere near over. Whereas if you compare that to the battle for 1 and 2 in the AM category, that is round about, that's about 18, 19 seconds between Cohen Van Eyck and Thomas Coomer. Actually, I should say round about 29 seconds, in fact, and I see a little bit of smoke.
That is Mr. Bly. Yeah, when he's
is,
blinking.
yes.
The thing with Owen as well, now he's lost all this time. He has also been in the pit lane 2 seconds more than anybody else. He's done 21 seconds. The both Sluman and Seleznev we're seeing at the moment behind him did 19.3, 19.6 seconds. Stefan, who is our, we need to give a shout out, you know, he's our main viewer, always, you know, always a good thing to have him there. I think he's been watching all of our streams, and he's very active in the chat. But he's pointing out that Gordon, as we're just seeing side by side, Seleznev going onto the inside here. Let's see if he can get it in. Yeah, I don't think Sluman just did not battle that one too much. Is he going to get the cut in here? No, he's just, let's see if he can get the slipstream here. But yeah, but Gordon is just under fueled as well. He's done the 17.7, and that's a trademark from him, just under fueling as Seleznev is trying to defend his position.
And we've actually seen a little bit of a message from Sarah Dove in chat saying, "Oh no," as we continue to look at this battle close between Sluman and Selesnya. Sluman going to want to be careful running that outside in the carousel. We've seen several drivers having an issue there. As he actually even catches a little bit of the grass on the left-hand side. You can see how hard all of these drivers are pushing to get every single little bit of pace out of the cars. They are not too far behind their competitor, but the more they battle, I'm sure Owen perfectly happy to see these two battling behind them. Oh, and Blythe has actually made a mistake.
Oh, sorry.
No, go back. You got to go back.
We're having a lot here.
So Kevin may have had some sort of incident.
So we're having Kevin Oak as well going in. Ooh, that's a heavy.
Hard contact. Oh, that was a brutal hit just then. And now we got to go back and see what happened to Owen Blythe. Oh, that is unfortunate. From the lead in category. Let's see if we can find the incident. Oh,
he's blinking, so I can't get anything more
I only caught the last moment of that incident. Perhaps, judging by the angle, perhaps he caught a little bit too much grass on the exit there. Doesn't look like too much damage. Let's see if we can ride on board with him now, see if there's any sort of skew on the steering wheel.
I don't think so.
No, not that I can see. So we'll see. This is going to be interesting to see. We've seen Owen have some pretty incredible pace thus far. The question is, will he be able to overcome now this mistake and catch back up with his competitors as he continues to have issues with blinking?
I'm just switching away from him a little bit. See if we... So
we're looking now at
huge incidents, 2 huge incidents, and who was Onk actually having? Oh, that was Michael Edens. I think Michael Edens was the other one in that.
Oh no, it was Edens. You're right. I was thinking of Hallowell. So it was Edens who was in that incident. Severe damage to the left front fender of that car, and you can see the headlights still intact, but rather crushed in. Not too far behind him is Thomas Kuhn, who's in the second position in the AM category. The question is, will he have any sort of pace against him? I think this will be a test of how much damage that car has for Edens. If the AM category drivers are catching up to him, you can also see a good bit of damage to the rear wing of the Ford GT, the blue Venom Sidewinder car. Thomas actually showing a good bit of pace himself. He's pulled away from his teammate Merlin Cooper as well as competitor Jamie Smith and closed the gap a little bit from Cohen Van Eyck, probably because Van Eyck has been involved in a couple of battles. We look now at Jamie Smith and now back to Van Eyck.
I was just trying to follow you.
No, that's all right. All right. So Cohen Van Eyck not too far behind his teammate Chris Yardley, but that is a battle not for position in class, but rather for position overall. Not sure that Cohen has enough pace to pass Yardley. That toothy grin certainly not going to give up easily as we look at an incident for Jamie Smith not too long ago. Popping in and out there for me. Did he catch the grass, perhaps?
I think he did. He definitely did. I'm just getting it here. Let's just see here from the outside. He's just going off throttle and just not steering too much as.
Is the stream back up? Okay. Let me try to see. So I actually was able to just have an opportunity just now, in case the viewers are listening. I just had an incident, conversation with Owen Blythe, and it seems like he's actually had experienced some sort of bad glitch with iRacing, where his car basically just, so he said, just magically broke, is how he described it, where he basically lost 2/10 of the straight line and couldn't turn right. Apparently that actually happened prior to his spin coming out of the toe, so perhaps that had some sort of influence on what happened there. See if we can get this stream back up.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying. I'm just at the moment 50% loading in, so we are trying to get it running back up there. I have no idea suddenly I just got a black screen and everything was just, yeah, straight out there.
Well, yes. So we'll see once we get back in here. We apologize to the viewers for the technical difficulties. Of course, technology is always user error, so I blame Nick for everything that just happened.
Well, you are the
Anyway,
American, so you are the reason why it went down.
well, yes, Americans do cause most of the world's problems. Anyway, so when we were last we were last discussing Jamie Smith, who had a bit of an incident heading into the final corner, was able to save it just by getting off of the throttle, letting the steering wheel feed straight, and getting back onto the track. That really is all you can do when you're in the grass in iRacing. Otherwise, you will in fact end up on in a wall, almost guaranteed. And judging by the fact that my interface has moved, I'm hoping that you've gotten back into the race.
I think
Yes, you have showed up on the stream.
I showed up on the stream. That's always a good thing. Let's see if we can get into. Okay, so
Yes, I think we're back now. We're good.
I don't have
You just have to get your SDK up.
Yeah. Sorry again for everybody out there. We are just having now. I have sound on and SDK slowly running here, and we are back up and running. That was fast.
Alrighty. We thank you all for your patience, those who've stuck with us. Looking at the stream, 14 or 15 of you, we appreciate you sticking with us despite the difficulties. I know that can be frustrating, certainly unfortunate for us, but now we are able to look at Andy Gorton, currently running in the second position. Not much has changed since we had that little bit of a crash. 3 seconds gap between Mike Skeppers and Andy Gorton, so Skeppers has walked away with it yet again. We now look at Marvin Sluman trying to put some pressure on Oleski Seleznev. This is now for the lead in the Pro-Am category, and as I was discussing a few moments ago with some issues for Owen Blythe, if you didn't hear anything about that, it seems he has experienced some sort of glitch from iRacing that has that basically made his car 0.2 slower in a straight line, and he also couldn't turn right, which I could imagine
that a crash or damage.
Well, it was well, no, it wasn't caused by a crash, which was interesting. We'll have to see if we can investigate that a little bit further. So, but the point I'm making, anyways, this is now the battle for the lead in Pro-Am. Oleski Seleznev has it. Marvin Sluman wants it. Antoine Morel not too far behind, just about 8 seconds. Certainly well within the realm of being able to be made up, and we'll actually start to see some people come in for their second pit stops in around about 13 to 15 minutes time. They are about halfway through their second stint of fuel, as we have seen the field start to spread out pretty decently. This is just about the closest battle we have on the track at the moment, 0.4 of a second between these two Corvettes battling for position. 4 Fords currently lead the field, followed by these particular two Corvettes, then two more BMWs, which has a decent balance there. We saw a lot of dominance from the BMWs at the beginning of the season. Good to see some a little bit more variety towards the front of the field, but it seems the Fords have certainly taken over as the dominant car in the series. We're right on board now with Marvin Sluman trying to utilize that slipstream, but not able to make any sort of a move on Seleznev, nowhere near being close enough to do so, as they come out of the carousel now and into the boot. Actually, you can see Sluman seems to be gaining a lot on the entry to the corners. Seleznev pulling away a little bit on exits. Seleznev actually catches the grass a little bit with the right side tires, coming into the boot and now into the toe. So a little bit of loss of time, and I'm sure these drivers are pushing as much as they possibly can, getting everything out of those Michelin racing tires that they currently have bolted onto those cars, and have kept bolted onto those cars since the very beginning of the race, past qualifying. Of course, obviously, you change your tires after qualifying in this series. However, most of the drivers, I mean, you can take tires. However, the time loss is certainly not worth taking tires an extra 30 seconds or so on the pit stop to be able to take on 4 fresh Michelin tires, which certainly does not warrant the roundabout. What we've lost maybe 2 or 3 seconds of pace, and over the course of just a few laps, that's not quite enough to make up with a tire change.
No,
That
definitely
battle
not.
spreads
The
out just a
races,
little bit there.
yeah, the races are definitely too short. That the tire change can be effective. Also, these cars are made to drive on one set of tires. About you can get a decent performance out of them for 2 hours, maybe even 3, depending on the track. These tires are made to last and not really in a sprint format. Um, that's not what the tires are. So they normally have quite good performance throughout the race. The driver fatigue might be a bigger concern for some of them, as we normally in a iRacing and ILMS race, IMSA and ILMS race, those are about an hour, which we are getting up to now. So that's the thing with this league. It is an hour and 20. I know we have now the GTE Endurance League or Endurance Cup thing going on from iRacing, which kind of do this format. So that's the thing where they now can practice it a little bit more than what they had before. So this particular 1 hour 20 that we have had in the past couple of seasons has been where experience had kind of determined a lot more than just raw pace. Also, to get back to now, we have all the Fords, leading the pack, but with the pro drivers, taking the Fords, we also have the fastest drivers in the Fords. So we don't always get kind of the picture. I know that the Ford has been heavily mentioned as one of the fastest cars out there, but again, in some of these with these cars, if you have a car that really suits your driving style and you get a good setup for it, you should be able to be up there and fight for it. I don't think, to be honest, that the car is 100% what is going to be the difference maker between you getting P3 or P6 in a race. That is down to the drivers, because I think some of the testing we've done and others have done and stuff like that, the difference between the cars in BOP terms is about 2/10, and with these drivers they can make that up. A good driver, good setup can definitely make that up.
Absolutely, and it was even true when we saw Nedelik and Bennett running the BMW, when the BMW was already a pretty large gap better, as we actually see a slow car to the inside. Darius Sasu continuing to have issues. Not sure if he's maybe run out of fuel.
No, he's just giving a lot of space.
That is certainly quite a lot of space. And actually, on the topic of tires that you were mentioning earlier, something worth noting for those watching is that when you see these cars in IMSA races in real life, or perhaps in an endurance race, or take, for example, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the stints that they're running are around about an hour each, give or take, whereas the stints we're running here are closer to 30 minutes or so. 25 to 35 minutes, typically the window for fuel here. Because of the fuel regulations, there is a fuel cap imposed by the league, by Apex Online Racing, which makes it a little bit more interesting. It wouldn't be quite as fun if these drivers were just going all out without any sort of pit stops. So they've capped it in such a way that these drivers will have to make 2 stops. We saw the first set of stops around about 30 minutes into the race. We'll see another set of stops probably within the next 7 to 10 minutes or so, as we approach nearly 20 minutes remaining. These races do tend to fly by, especially with as much action on track as we've seen, and some misfortunes that we've seen. I mean, I can't imagine anyone who has worse luck this season than Owen Blythe. First race gets taken out almost immediately, and to give a little bit of context, even, it was largely discussed among many of the members whether or not he should be in the pro class of the Pro-Am class. He had even said that he should be in the pro class, but the stewards wanted to see that performance out of him in Pro-Am first. So to give the context, then, first round in Brazil, he was taken out basically in turn 1 and never had much of a chance. Then in Sebring, he absolutely was punted off of the track by one of the CRG cars, never had a chance to get into turn 1, much less show any sort of race pace. Then at a penalty because of what happened at the first round at Interlagos, he ended up having a penalty at Silverstone. He had basically dominated that race and should have won with something of like a 30-second gap. Instead, just barely lost it. I talked to him actually post-race, and he basically said I was going to win at the race or I was not going to finish, and he chose not to finish. He made a huge move into what used to be turn 1 at Silverstone and ended up spinning out and ending up in the wall, went from second place all the way down to 6th in category, and honestly, without that penalty, he would have dominantly won that category. And then last week, he finally got that win, broke through, but now that bad luck continues with some technical difficulties, both blinking and a glitch from iRacing, probably connected to his blinking, that has caused another DNF for him. So certainly no chance, I wouldn't imagine it, much of any chance at the championship. Of course, anything can happen, but that has certainly put him at a major disadvantage. And I don't know anyone else who's had worse luck than him thus far this season.
No, and coming back to that, damage. Yeah, if he's blinking, iRacing can't really position him correctly. So that might be what we're seeing, though. He might have picked up a damage from that blinking. So if he's feeling that could definitely be a thing. But yeah, he has had some bad luck. But the coordinators are having issues with moving drivers up and down at the moment. Because of the lack of drivers that we have. So we started the season with 45 drivers, and we're now down to, I think we started 26 drivers this race. So almost half the field has left. Some due to work schedules now, with some countries opening up again. Suddenly, COVID not being too much of a problem some places, and some places really going strong still. So people have had those things. I saw one of the members have a broken brake pedal just before the race tonight. Others have complained that they weren't able to follow the pro drivers. And we have also had some both drivers who are here and who has also left that was not pleased with these 80-minute long races. They were getting a bit too long for them. So again, there have been talks, and as we're just seeing, Hallwell being the first of the drivers to take a second stop. There has been talks about changing the format up a little bit, spicing it up. So we might see that already from the next race. The next race is still a track poll, so the drivers have been allowed to vote for the track for the next race. Not sure that the result has been up yet, so be sure to look out for the Twitter and also on YouTube, where the post for the next round. As soon as I know the track, I will make the YouTube event for it, and we will get it shared on Twitter and also on the forums around, and also on our AOR Discord. So if you're not a member of that, what are you doing? Definitely join. And you will be able to see what track, and when the drivers have to choose, it can go either way. I did see a lot of votes in the first round where they just had to eliminate the tracks. About a lot of the drivers wanted to go to Bathurst, which could be one hell of a race.
One hell of a race, yeah, absolutely.
That would be, if I could vote, I would have voted for. Damn, that's a beast of a track. Because of that, going up the mountain, it's gonna be crazy. It's always crazy.
Now, we have spent a good bit of time pretending that this is a podcast, but of course, obviously, it's not. We've got a lot of racing to discuss. So, at the front of the field, let's give a little bit of an update. Let's run down through the field and give a little bit of an update on what we've had so far. At the front of the field is Mike Skeppers, the Ford driver from Venom Ultima. His teammate, Andy Gorton, currently in the second position. That is the UK driver, also in a Ford. The third Ford at the top of the field, and currently holding the final position of the podium in the pro category. That is our good German friend, Lesky Seleznev, just behind. Not actually too big of a gap between the two of them. Seleznev currently running away from Marvin Sluman. That battle was much closer just a few moments ago, but now up to about a second, the distance between the two of them. Marvin Sluman, the first of the Hyperion Racing cars. That is the second of the best Corvettes. Then a little bit further back, we see Antoine Morel, the Frenchman, driving the BMW, that privateer entry. A little bit further down, Gunnar Gals, who we saw having a spectacular battle a couple of weeks ago in Silverstone. He is currently in the fourth position in class. Taj Edwards, not too far behind him, another pro driver, the Jamaican, driving the Ford, the orange car with the green rims and end plates. Then a little bit further back, the second of the Hyperion Racing cars, that is Chris Yardley, the best of the Porsche 911 RSRs in the field. He's followed not too far back by Sarah Dove, who's made a spectacular comeback after a couple of mistakes that she made. So the UK driver making up for a few positions. Then Cohen Van Eyck with a pretty
she's from Scotland, sorry, but calling a UK driver, she will be after you.
She will probably shoot me. Excellent. Yeah. Anyway, Cohen Van Eyck, the Dutch driver, in the first position in the AM category with a pretty dominant lead over his competition. Thomas Lagney not too far behind in the Corvette. That is one of our French drivers, teammate to Antoine Morel. If you look a little bit further back, I believe that is John Hallowell. Actually, Gunners Rasgal's making a pit stop there. So Thomas Coombe then a little bit further behind John Hallowell, who's had a few incidents so far. Thomas Coombe currently in the second position in the AM category. A little bit further back then is Michael Edens, the second of the Venom Sidewinders cars that has had some pretty crazy issues so far in this race. Merlin Cooper then the second of the AM category V3 Racing entries. So it's V3 race, I should say Venom, then V3, Venom, then V3. Now, Gunners Rasgals, who we discussed a little bit earlier, he's come into the pit lane, but the next driver worth noting is Jamie Smith, currently in fourth position. We now look on board with John Hallowell, the Venom Sidewinder Ford GT, and he has just come way too hot into the carousel. Never had a chance there of getting into the corner, and he's just backed it in. Not a chance of making it there. I don't know what happened. It's like he didn't even brake. He was not nearly on the brakes early enough and didn't have a chance there. That carousel has quite a bit of banking, but certainly nothing anywhere near enough banking to carry the speed that he was running heading into the corner. We'll watch it one more time just to torture him, as we like to do here in the broadcast, and even look at it in slow-mo so he can just savor this moment when he comes and looks back at the broadcast, as we would expect many of the drivers to do. Just never had a chance getting into the corner. You can see tried to counter steer as much as possible, but nothing he could do there. Hard on the brakes and into the wall. Good bit of damage now to the rear end of that car, and I'd have to imagine some left rear suspension damage. He's actually now not too far ahead of his teammate, who dives into the pit lane. So that is another casualty of the Venom Sidewinder stable. Michael Edens comes into the pit lane. We saw an incident a little bit earlier between himself and Kevin Unk going into the S's into turn 2. Antoine Morel, we're now looking at from Relax Racing. So perhaps an incident from him, or is this
we're live? I was just curious because he's at the moment leading, but I think if we just get up the pit stops, I don't think he stopped.
Yes. So he has not yet stopped. He stayed out, as did Mike in the Ford, the German driver. So we've seen now basically everybody except for these two particular drivers come into the pit lane. Mike Skepper still ahead of Andy Gorton by a rather large margin. This time, Mike not able to or Andy, I should say, not able to make up nearly as much of a gap on Mike as he did on the first pit cycle. Taj Edwards with all the way up into the 4th position. Not sure if he's made his second stop or not. We now right on board with John Hallowell, and the situation goes from bad to worse for him, continuing to have issues getting onto the grass there, just ahead of one of the V3 Racing drivers. We now right on board with Antoine Morel, who comes into the pit lane to make his final stop of the race, with now coming up on just 15 minutes remaining in the race. 80 minutes was on the clock when we dropped the green flag not too long ago. Now 2 of the pink cars from 2 different teams coming into the pit lane. Sarah Dove follows in Chris Yardley. That's Porsche, then Ford coming into the pit lane now. They'll get passed by some of their colleagues in the Pro-Am category who have already pit. So this is basically the second half of the pit cycle, as we see Morel already coming back out of the pit lane, and one of the V3 Racing cars in the background. I think that is Thomas Coombe, who has come into the pits as well. And now his V3 Racing teammate, that would be Merlin Cooper, who has come in not too far behind him.
Oh, has she overtaken him? Has she gotten it? Sarah has taken Yardley into the pits, and
so that is the battle off of pit lane taken by Sarah Dove. Very well done.
Extreme. That she will be pleased about that, but you know, that grin behind, I don't think it's not done here. Yardley has gotten a great exit out of those corners, and let's see if she can keep it into the corner where we've seen 2 huge crashes here in the last couple of minutes. She's going to the inside, outside. No, she's just... No, she will get that one. Yardley has tried to... decided not to be the 4th member of the Wall of Pain into the outside there. So good battle for and good positioning for Sarah to get that place right there. She will be pleased with that.
Well, in fact, I'm sure Chris Yardley has plenty more moves to try to make here. We see our German friend coming into the pit lane. He has the first pit stall on the pit lane, I believe. So Mike Skepperson, we're actually looking at Andy Gorton, who now will overtake. So that is what was the lead. So it seems like a lot of time lost by Mike in that particular stop. He comes out pretty quick. That was a very short stop from him. So certainly a short stop on fuel with just about 15 minutes remaining. Only a few liters of fuel required to make it to the end. But I think he hasn't lost any positions, but certainly has lost a good bit of time to those 2 leaders. Looking at our battle box, you'll see that in the bottom right hand side of your screen. Also take a look at the bottom of your screen, across the bottom, the pit time and who's in the pits. So Cohen Van Eyck currently in the pit lane, about 19 seconds now. He has been in the pit lane, and actually looks like Thomas Coombe has overtaken him. So has something happened to Cohen Van Eyck on the pit cycle that has caused him to lose the lead? Not quite sure what's happened there.
No.
That is very interesting. Has he had to come in? Has he had to come in twice?
Oh, yeah, he has been in twice. Let's see what happened here first time.
3 total times then. Oh, that has to be some sort of problem. Look at how slow he came into the pit lane. Has he had a fuel or something?
Has he run dry? Yeah, I think he has been running just one more lap than he could. That, oh my god, that will be so... That has lost him so much. That has lost him the win. He's now down to P3 in class. That has been probably the most dominant, display from one of the AM drivers in a long time, and now he's 18 seconds behind Tom Coombe. He has lost a huge amount of time trying to get that extra lap, and he will be beating himself up about that.
Absolutely, and actually, if you look at the battle box at the bottom right-hand side, I don't know if you have that up, Nick, but you can see the number of pit stops everybody's made. So Cohen has not made an extra stop, but rather has run out of fuel, so tried to make it a little bit too long out of that car, maybe wasn't paying attention to his black box and ended up running out of fuel, and that was just enough time that he needed to lose in order to lose that lead. So now it is a V3 Racing 1-2 in the AM category. Now on the topic of the V3 Racing drivers. 9 seconds, nearly 10, the difference between the two of them. And yet another time where Thomas Kuhn has not necessarily been dominant, but we've seen over the last 2 seasons a lot out of him where he's just had clean races and been opportunistic in such a way that he ends up basically stealing wins that he might not have otherwise won without the help of mistakes from other drivers. We're looking at his Austrian teammate, that is Merlin Cooper, in the number 366 with the gold rims on that car. Riding on board now with him, heading into the carousel. Now these two drivers just need to continue the pace that they're running. They don't need to be pushing too much. No pressure really from Cohen Van Eyck. Another 20 seconds back, 20 plus seconds back even behind Merlin Cooper. That's a rather massive gap between the two of them. Now, Mike Leedens, of course, between the two of them after having continued with some issues a little bit earlier. I don't think he even has enough pace to catch up to Merlin here. We'll have to see, but as long as Merlin and Thomas stay on the track and don't make any more mistakes, I think this race is absolutely Thomas Kuhn's race to lose. So we see him with a huge gap, and just under a second the gap between Merlin and the pro driver behind him. Now Chris Yardley continuing to try to put pressure on Sarah Dove, not able to make any sort of move coming out of the final corner. That toothy grin on the front end of the Porsche getting a little bit smaller in the mirror of Sarah Dove. That has to be a much better feeling. I can't imagine I'd want to have someone smiling at me in the mirror for too long. It would be rather disconcerting seeing that. And in fact, two purplish pink cars, one after the other, but from two completely different teams.
Yeah, definitely, and as we're seeing Yardley just getting closer and closer and closer, let's see, is this the time that he can make that move? The Porsche not the strongest on a straight line, and no, he's had to be behind. I just want to clarify for the viewers, as I have been, I had a PC completely malfunctioning. I have no idea what happened. The driver at the moment, it says that they have only done one stop because I joined in, had to close iRacing and everything, but they have done 2 stops and not 1 stop, so that's a misinformation on the overlay there.
Right, so we do apologize for some technical difficulties. Of course, it happens to the best of us, and of course has fortunately been only our first technical issue for the beginning of the season. Now for working on 5 rounds in the season.
I do blame you. I do blame you.
Naturally, as one does. Now we are actually just approaching, about to be 8 minutes remaining in the race, so 80 minutes total when we drop the green flag. 8 minutes now remain, with Mike Skeppers with a handy lead at the front of the field. 6 seconds between himself and teammate Andy Gorton at the very front, and another Ford manufacturer teammate associate, the German driver, in 3rd position. It's interesting to go from listening to that rather hearty scream of the flat 6 engine at the rear end of the Porsche 911 RSR just behind Mike in the Ford, that rather toned down engine that you can hear, the V6 turbo of the Ford EcoBoost.
I really like that sound.
In fact, going back and forth every shift.
It just sounds so great, the Ford here. It has such a unique sound to it compared to a lot of other cars. The Porsche also has a unique sound to it, but just especially now we hear when he's off throttle, going through the corners, the rumble of the car is amazing. As we're just watching his rear suspension here going across, and now that has been a lap with our German friend here.
Well, why don't we discuss that a little bit? We have a little bit of downtime before the end of the race here, and not too many battles on track for the moment. Let's go on board again with the Ford. That is the V6 turbocharged EcoBoost engine from Ford. If we can find one of the BMWs, let's ride along with them.
I will just
of course, all of these engines, all of these transmissions, 6-speed sequential transmissions.
Well, let's find a BMW. We will go Antoine. What else? See, this car just sounds a little bit more stale in my opinion, but as well, if you are really on off throttle, you can just hear the rumble of the cars. of the car.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't sound like that much. It doesn't really sound a lot. But here,
Well, when you compare it to, if we could go inside the car, when you compare it to that mid-engine V6 Ford, this is a V8 twin turbocharged front-engine BMW, which both affects the handling characteristics and the sound of the car. And then let's go on board with one of our Porsche drivers, if we can. The front of the field is currently Chris Yardley, who we're now running on board with. You listen to that engine. That is a flat V6 right at the back of the car. That's a rear-engine car that you can.
That's not just the rear. That's the engine is the furthest back thing you have.
Car.
This is a proper rear engine.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, we don't have any of the Ferraris out on track with the retirement a little bit earlier. But that, of course, sounds we rather affectionately call it the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
That Ferrari 488 GTE.
It's not good.
Not sure. We don't have any of those currently on track. Let's see if we can find one of the Corvettes.
Having Selesnev here.
Yep. So we have Selesnev currently leading our category and actually coming up rather quickly on Victor Mateo. Is going to lap 8th position in class. We're on board with him. Now, most people would remember the C7 iteration of the GTE, which was rather the definition of the word Merca, not America, Merca. But instead of the typical front engine that we're used to, we've now seen Corvette move to a mid-engine iteration, which has changed the sound a good bit. And give it a little bit of a more toned down.
It's not really a Corvette anymore. For me, I've been at Le Mans, right? And sitting on top of the pit wall, you were not, you knew where the Corvette pit were, because when you had your beverage and you put it down on the seat, you could see when the Corvette started up, because everything was just wobbling all over the place. That's a Corvette. You're not, a Corvette, you don't just hear it, you feel it when it comes rumbling by. This doesn't, this doesn't rumble.
Yes, it certainly is something new. And on the topic of the 488 that we were discussing earlier, we did mention that this is the typical the V8 we expect from an American manufacturer. The 488 is also a 3.9 liter twin turbocharged engine. That is another V8 and yet another example of the mid-engine iteration. So 3 manufacturers going with mid-engine, 1 rear engine and 1 front engine, featured in the IMSA series as well as in the ILMS series. Now we are within 3 minutes to go, so we'll quit geeking out about engine specs and talk about the race. We see a huge moment from Chris Yardley just there. Catches the grass a little bit on the left-hand side after going wide coming out of turn 1. Sarah Dove continues to walk away and, in fact, is putting a lot of pressure on Gunners Rasgal's a little bit further ahead. So that's the Ford versus the BMW. BMW, then Ford, then the Porsche. So we have a privateer entry, then Team AOR, and then Hyperion Racing. We'll see if Sarah is able to make any sort of move. She's been slowly catching up to Gunners, and you can see just how much more speed she has now on the exit, heading into the boot, the left-hand side corner. Now just coming up. Gunners not able to quite hit the apex. The late apex from the BMW gets a much better exit out of there. Now heading into the toe of the boot, we'll see who gets the advantage heading into the corner. Deep into the braking zone is Sarah Dove. Not able to make a move quite yet, but Gunners not able to hold the inside line nearly as long. We'll see if she gets any sort of a run to the inside line. She was really close to being able to use the slipstream to get to the inside. This is going to be an interesting couple laps to pay attention to, and we'll keep paying attention to the lap counter and the time going down on the top left-hand side of your screen. Now just a minute and a half left of this race. We see a replay from Marvin Sluman, perhaps an issue from him, coming into the final corner, and yet another example.
That's the same as we saw Sarah did.
But it doesn't look like he's lost any positions, and no damage to the car.
He was really alone out there, so not the biggest problem. But we saw that was exactly the same as what Sarah did early on in the race.
Well, she's now about to fight for the 4th position. We see Gunners going wide, coming up the hill. A little bit of damage to the left-hand side of the BMW. That's going to hurt it in the straight line just a little bit. Sarah going to be tight in the slipstream, right underneath the gearbox, right underneath the diffuser, and that tall rear wing of the GTE just ahead. She swings around to the left-hand side.
Off track.
She's into the grass. Not able to. She's able to keep it straight. Very well done by her, but she has to get out of the gas and loses a good bit of time coming across. An unfortunate mistake from Sarah that may even lose her the opportunity to make any sort of a move. With now 30 seconds remaining in the race, we see our leader, Mike Skepper's, about to take the white flag. I believe this will be the white flag this time around. So it'll be 1 minute and 1 hour, I should say, in 20 minutes plus 1 lap in the race.
And that's a good thing for Sarah, as that will mean that she gets 1 more crack at.
Yeah, just about a lap and a half.
Yeah,
it's clear to see she has the faster car, but this battle is even bringing Chris Yardley into the mix of it, so Sarah could have her best result of the season, regardless of what happens here. So we'll see if she's able to make any sort of a move. She's very stable into the braking zones, certainly way deeper from the Ford than the BMW. Gunner's continuing to put a great show of his talent in defending, so this will be the lap that it has to be made. We'll try to follow our leaders across the line, but we definitely want to give everybody a good view of this battle as it happens. Leslie Seleznev currently leading the Pro-Am category. Mike Skepper's in the lead of the Pros, and the AMs currently led by Thomas Coombs. They're about to come across the line here. Now, going to be a battle of slipstream through Turn 1. Who's going to be able to get through Turn 1 better? We saw Razgals overdrive it last time around. Will he be able to make it through this time? Goes a little bit off. Sarah really using the runoff to the left-hand side to get a good run. She now has the slipstream, a huge advantage to the Ford behind. Will she make the same mistake as she did last time? I should hope not. She's going to use as much of it as she can. Let's look off the front end of the car and see if she's able to make the move. Less than a tenth of a second, the difference between the two of them. They're side by side, nose to nose, door to door. Who will be first into the carousel? Sarah has the outside line. Will she be able to make it stick on the outside? About barely the gap. And now she's clear. She's made it clear. Passing the outside by Sarah Dove. An amazing pass. Let's see if we can get a quick replay of that in just a few moments' time. Mike Skepers comes across the line for the win. A dominant performance from the Venom Ultima team. 1-2 lockout from those two drivers, and certainly very impressive. And we see Sarah Dove going to continue to try to hold off an attack from Gunners Razgals, but Gunners now has some pressure from the Porsche behind. Chris Yardley not going to make it easy on him in the final lap, so I think Sarah might have this position basically locked down, so she will take the 4th position. As we see now, Oleski Seleznev comes across the line. He will take the checkered flag for the win in the Pro-Am category. We'll see where the rest of this field ends up. Now we'll see Chris Yardley
really close. He's not gonna be able to go in here. Oh, that's into the wall. Chris is into the wall. Just a little bit there. Oh, definitely did. But yeah, let's just have a look just here at the end of Sarah's amazing overtake there onto the outside of the carousel. It's, you know, we have seen so many drivers go off there, and she just kept her foot in and went onto the outside, and there was, you know, that move were decided a long way back that she was gonna go there, and here the last couple of laps she just really had the measure of Gunner there, so she definitely, what a drive from her.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible for her. As we see now, Cone Van Eyck comes across the line. A disappointing finish for him after having such a dominant performance earlier in the race and a pit stop issue and running out of fuel that caused him to only take home the 3rd position of the podium. I got to imagine he's going to be very, very disappointed with that. We'll see if we can get a few people in for interviews in just a few moments' time. Hopefully, Mike will be cooperative. We'll see. I'll annoy him until he comes into the booth. In just a few moments, we'll have your updated points standing. Hopefully, just about 4 minutes until we'll be able to have that for you, as all the drivers have now come across the line to finish. We hear the few of the engines in the background, a lot of people disconnecting now. But to give you an overall finishing order, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look.
Yes. The race results.
Yep, here we go. Race results. Mike Skeffers comes home with the win from Venom Ultima. The second place on the podium, Andy Gorton, win the 185. And then our German friend Mike in the third position. So 2 Mikes in the top 3 positions. So the podium, actually 2 podiums right next to each other, in fact. So the top 3 in Pro followed immediately by the top 3 in AM, Oleski Seleznev, Marvin Sluman, and Antoine Morel. We saw some issues for Owen Blythe, who was doing very well in that category. Then if you look a little bit further down, Thomas Kuhn took home the top spot in the AM category after being a little bit opportunistic with the mistake from Cohen Van Eyck. His teammate, Merlin Cooper, in the 14th position overall, which is second step of the podium in the AM category. And the final podium position goes to Cohen Van Eyck in 16th overall in the number 318. Certainly going to be a little bit of a disappointing performance from him. Let's see if we can get somebody in here for interview. In fact, we do have Thomas Kuhn in here for interview. Thomas, we've seen a lot of situations in the last couple of seasons and the last couple of races where you've just not necessarily had the dominant pace, but instead were able to just capitalize on the mistakes of others. How are you able to put yourself in the perfect position to take advantage?
I think really it's having a setup that sort of works for you. Like, I know my setup's not the fastest because I tried a couple in practice that were way faster than the one I ran in the race, but trying to get a setup that was stable for me seemed to help. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear.
Wait, yeah, we got you. My bad. So this is your is this your first or your second win so far this season?
First.
So now this is 2 seasons in a row. You went from winning your first AOR race last season to now having 4 or 5 on your resume. How does it feel to be something of a regular at the top of the pro of the AM field, I should say?
Yeah, it feels good because in the past I was never that quick really. Getting podiums wasn't something that happened very often, so now having the pace to be able to compete for wins and be on the podium regularly it's nice to have. And yeah, it's just good to finally get a win this season because it's been difficult getting used to this car.
I can imagine with the new manufacturer coming in with Corvette. My last question that I would have for you is regarding your class assignment. You've won a few races yet, so what do you think is the next step for you? Do you think you still need to develop your driving skills more? Do you think you're ready to start taking on the Pro-Am category?
I think really at the moment it's a case of trying to get a bit more pace overall. I'm quite consistent, which helps me finish a bit higher up, but trying to have like a good pace consecutively is sort of my next aim, because today I had nowhere near the pace to win AM class, but I guess I got lucky with, I think Cohen ran out of fuel or something, so yeah. It's just trying to develop that pace a bit further. Yeah,
we just got a message from him when he went into the pits. He had the 0.6 liters of fuel, so when we saw him he was jumping into the pits, so
that's a shame.
That is a race that he lost, but looking forward, what have you voted for the track next week, and what are you hoping for?
I voted for Motegi because Bathurst isn't really one of my strong tracks. I've never driven a race there and I can barely practice there without crashing, so but yeah, if it does come to Bathurst, I guess next week for me it'll just be a race of survival. If it's Motegi, then I can look forward to it a bit more, but yeah, if it's Bathurst, then it's just going to be a case of trying to survive without crashing.
Well, it's a pleasure as always to have you up at the broadcast booth with us, and always awesome to see you up on the top step of the podium. So thank you again for joining us, Thomas.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Now, as anyone who may know Mike Skeppers, he is a stubborn lad and refuses to come into the booth for interview because he claims that he screamed like Gasly, and so his voice is gone now. So instead, we must have someone to talk on his behalf. So let's talk to Owen Blythe, who was rather dominant in the Pro-Am category until some some issues plagued him. Owen, what happened to you in the race, and why didn't you win? We would expect so much more from you.
Yeah, I expected more from me. I have no idea. Out of nowhere, I just could not turn right anymore, and I had no straight line speed. Was losing over 2/10 down the back straight, so I decided to call it quits after the pit stop because I was just going back. And I was gonna box for lap, but I span. But the understeer was so bad mid corner and corner exit, I couldn't avoid it.
I was wondering, on the stream we were watching, and you were in really good positioning. What kind of fuel do you have on the car? Because you were just, we were not able to see you because you were just blinking so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try like a solution for it, but for some reason, I know it's normally like a common occurrence for me, but I wasn't blinking for me that race for a change, so I kind of thought it fixed itself, but no, it hasn't.
We had laps where you weren't there.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
For sure. And of course, my last question would be regarding, I don't know how anyone in this series could claim that they have more bad luck than you do. We've seen, the discussions in the forums and in the Discord regarding whether you should be in Pro-Am or Pro, and the Stewards saying that they wanted to see some more performance out of you before promoting you to Pro, and now what, 3 or 4 DNFs out of 5 races. So how do you overcome that bad luck and try to put yourself back into a good position to compete for the championship?
I mean, I've got to take it race by race. That's what I've been doing since Road America. Like I'm taking a race by race basis. For me, it's like I'm taking every race like I'm expecting to be pro. So like when I'm racing pro-ams, it doesn't really mean too much to me because I've always expected to be promoted. So I'm hoping that I kind of don't, because I still feel like I have a shot at the Pro-Am Championship if I have a few good rounds. So if I get promoted to Pro, then obviously I've got no chance at all. So yeah, that's where I'm at the minute on a race-by-race basis.
Well, we certainly wish you the best and hope that your luck changes and comes back your direction. We thank you again for coming and joining us up in the broadcast booth for interview.
No problem. Shout out to Mike.
All right, so the last thing we'll do before we close out our stream, let's go over our points standings. We'll start with the Pro category, if we can, or actually, no, we'll start with AM. So in the AM category, Thomas Coombe currently leads the standings by with a margin of about 17 points, 88 points in total, so he jumps up a position. We saw Tristan Koenig not attending the race today and has gone down 3 positions. That bumps Coombe, Smith, and Ike up into the top 3 positions. Jamie Smith currently in second, and Cohen Van Eyck in third. Only 1 point separates those 2 drivers. So Cohen, with that unfortunate ending to the race, could have, in fact, taken the 2nd spot on the standings on the leaderboard. Now let's talk about our Pro-Am category. In Pro-Am, Antoine Morel, the Frenchman, currently in the lead with 56 points. He's jumped up 3 positions in today's race. Garnier Gals holds steady in the 2nd position with 53 points, 3 points down from the leader. Kevin Hulk, despite having a DNF today, still is able to maintain a top 3 position, comes all the way down from having been the leader in the class. Now only 47 points for him. And also worth noting, our winner this week, Oleski Seleznev, down in 6th with 40 points, and Owen Blythe with 45, just outside of the top 3. Now we go on to our Pro category standings. Alex Bennett, despite not being in attendance this week, still leads the category by a 9-point margin over Mike Skeppers and Andy Gorton. The Venom Ultima teammates each move up 1 position, as Martin Nedelik, who's withdrawn and was not in attendance this week, has dropped down now to the 4th position. So actually not too far between Andy Gorton and Mike Skeppers either, so 9 points between each of the top 3. That going to be an interesting battle to keep an eye on as the season goes on.
Yeah, definitely, and we have close battles, and definitely if we go back to the amps now, Coombe has taken quite a lead, but consistency over the 3 classes is definitely key. You know, the pro-ams is so close. You know, one driver who is not here for one race, that's almost championship gone right there. And Selesnev has now, with this victory, put himself into contention again. And there's not a lot of, you know, only 16 points. That's less than a race win between, you know, P1 and P6. So, and we have, you know, a lot of drivers on equal numbers of points. So everything to fight for.
Indeed, and with how close these championships are, I mean, I don't see any reason why somebody shouldn't want to jump in and try to get in on this iRacing GTE League. Again, please feel free to go to the Apex Online Racing's website at apexonlineracing.com and sign up. We need more drivers. We need more people watching the races and promoting the races. So any sort of support is appreciated. It's a great league. The racing is spectacular. It really doesn't get any better than this. So I think that's a good place to end it. So on behalf of myself, Brayden Hill, and my colleague and co-commentator, Nick Domino, we thank you for joining us in the Apex Online Racing broadcast booth. And we hope to see you at the same time next week for our next round, either in Bathurst or in Motegi. And we can't wait to see you then.